We have a great show lined up for you this week. We have highlights from the community call, which features two teams which really epitomize utility on the Hedera network. I also have an interview with a user of all the products on Hedera. Of course, I have all of these interviews with the teams that are building and putting out products on the Hedera network. But the bigger part of our community are the people that are using those products. And this guy uses everything from our DeFi platforms to our games to even one of our DePIN platforms. You can go down the line. It's a great discussion. I also have a conversation with Rob Allen about that Department of Transportation use case that we were talking about a couple weeks ago. And we've got a lot more for you. Welcome back. I'm Brandon, the HBAR Bull, here once again to bring you the latest in the Hedera ecosystem. But as always, none of this is financial advice. Use it for entertainment or educational purposes only. So to start, I want to address the elephant in the room. Earlier this week, Mastercard announced its crypto partner program aimed at bringing more digital asset companies into the global payments ecosystem. This initiative connects crypto firms, including wallets, exchanges, infrastructure providers, and fintech platforms with Mastercard's network so they can build products like crypto debit cards, stablecoin payments, and other digital asset services. Conspicuously, Hedera is missing from the list of more than 80 companies that are included in the program. So naturally, the question is why? Speculating on the negative side, it's possible that Hedera simply dropped the ball and didn't build the relationships that would have led to inclusion. It's also possible that Mastercard may have decided not to include Hedera for a technical or strategic reason. Both of those scenarios feel unlikely, but still have to be considered when evaluating Hedera's position in the space. Now let's look at some of the glass half full possibilities. Mastercard is clearly going to want to keep this program front and center, and it's very likely we'll see additional partners added over time. It may not be a bad strategy for them to hold some higher profile teams like Hedera for a second or even a third wave of additions, especially if that announcement were tied to something larger like Mastercard potentially joining the Hedera Governing Council. There has been ancillary connections between Hedera and Mastercard. For example, FSCO led the move to Hedera as one of Mastercard's first forays into DLT, Mastercard Provenance, was sunset. There's also the potential that Hedera is working closely with a competitor like Visa or Discover, or one of those other credit card companies is in the process of joining the Hedera Council. Now, all of that is pure speculation. I will say that I'm trying to square the circle around the main sponsor of the McLaren cars, which of course Hedera has a major partnership with now, is Mastercard. And I have to think that they have the final say or a major input on other sponsors that come online. If they're antithetical to whatever the brand they're trying to put out is, they probably wouldn't make a good fit. So hopefully there is some more discussions going on there. The other thing is, I talked several weeks ago about an interview I had lined up with Mance Harmon on payments and Agentic AI. That was postponed, but it wasn't canceled. And we're planning right now to do that in a couple weeks. So hopefully I can ask about this a little bit as well. I will say that I'll give him a heads up beforehand. And if for whatever reason it's a sensitive topic, either because there's stuff going on in the background or he just doesn't have any additional input, he may just opt to not address that during the interview. So if you see it, it doesn't mean that I didn't ask him about it. It just means that Mance didn't have anything to say at the time. Now we're going to shift gears here a little bit. We are going to get into the top DEX on Hedera, Saucerswap, because they had some really interesting news that came out over the past couple weeks. Now, we covered version 3 with limit orders last week, but there's a couple more things that I wanted to shed some light on. First, there was an asset expansion strategy DAO proposal where they're going to allocate resources towards onboarding and targeting high growth assets. We're talking about RWAs, tokenized securities, and commodities, LSTs, and yield bearing stablecoins. The funds for this initiative are currently unallocated buyback shares that will fund listings, launch liquidity, and other expenses. The key word there is unallocated. This does not impact the amount that's being used to buy back sauce for single-sided staking at all. I got a question on this, and it's a very valid question, but all the percentages that are currently going to sauce buybacks are going to continue to incentivize single-sided staking. So we have some breaking news around Saucerswap. We have their native token Sauce just showed up on the listing page for Kraken. So now we have 3 tokens that either have been listed or are going to be listed on Kraken. We have Dovu, we have our premier wallet token pack, and then now we have Sauce. So hopefully we're going to get some more. Now, like Brady and I talked about a few days ago, you have to have your Mika white paper, or I understand that you have to have your Mika white paper to get listed on Kraken. So for all of you tokenized businesses that want to take advantage of HTS tokens getting listed on this tier 1 exchange and maybe get listed yourself, make sure you knock out that Mika white paper. Now, before we get into the second thing that I wanted to highlight around Saucerswap, I wanted to give some context. There are 2 types of fees that can be charged around utilizing our Premier DEX. The first one is for interacting directly with the smart contracts around our liquidity pools. There's a 0.3% fee that's associated with that. The vast majority of that goes to the liquidity providers, the community themselves. So that's 0.25% of the 0.3%. The remaining 5 basis points goes to the platform and is utilized by the DAO and so forth. The other type of fee is an interface fee. So the liquidity pools, the liquidity layer can be interacted with by pretty much any developer out there. So we have, of course, the main website for Saucerswap. And then we also have things like Orbit. We have things like Bonzo Vaults. We have DEX aggregators on Hedera. They also tap into that underlying liquidity layer. And those teams charge a fee for that interface. For example, the Saucerswap website charges 0.25%. Again, 0.25%, and that's pretty standard across the other users of that underlying liquidity. But there is one place where you can completely eliminate that fee, and that's using the Saucerswap apps. The Saucerswap apps don't charge an interface at all. It's only the smart contract fee, that 0.3% that you get charged. Now, this is for user acquisition, so we want to get as many people using those apps as possible. It's available on both iOS and Android. I thought this was something that all of the degens would certainly want to know, so I wanted to pass it on. So now we're going to jump into a quick update on the HBAR-backed ETF HBR. We did see an additional 7 million HBAR added to the ETF holdings, bringing the total to 569 million HBAR under management. Now I want to dive into some of those highlights around the community call. I'm going to start off with Sealcoin. Sealcoin is one of the top DePIN, decentralized physical infrastructure plays on Hedera, and he did give us some new information. So it's just a few minutes. We'll take a look at it, and then we'll come back and chat about it.
Thank you, Luke, for having me. I'm glad to meet you, Sakin, and glad to be connected to the Hedera community. Basically, I'm the Chief Product and Strategy Officer for Sealcoin, which is part of a large cybersecurity group, which does a few different things. Maybe I can show you quickly. We produce actually microprocessors that are deployed in many devices. We also produce identities that we can actually inject in the silicon. We launch satellites, and with Sealcoin, we created this decentralized platform that enabled those devices and those machines to start interacting and transacting with one another, which means that another way to look at it is that we can actually inject a crypto wallet inside any machines that make them transactional, but also close to our DNA and cybersecurity DNA. We also make sure that each of these machines have an identity and a secure framework or layer, making sure that they can not only transact, but also transact safely in this environment. We also provide the settlement layer through our own cryptocurrency. And this is why we have this hybrid, but maybe we can come back to that later, hybrid model where we provide utility, which is security through identity and access to those use cases, but also a payment layer, which is given. I mean, it's obvious to us in the crypto space, but to the outside world, machines do not have access to money yet. They have access to a bank account, which is not designed for this machine economy. And this is what we are obviously designing on top of Hedera. Basically, Hedera enables us to do many more things. I mean, it has to do with the nature of how Hedera was built and what we needed the most, what was the main point that we needed was making sure that we had high throughput. We're talking about onboarding the next trillion of devices, not billion of users. So high throughput was obviously very key to us. Secure. We're a cybersecurity company, and we understand that most of our clients need those security frameworks. So it was very important that we could actually speak the same language. By the way, we actually participated last year to a HIP, so Hedera Improvement Protocol suggestions, because we are also, the one thing that I haven't mentioned is that the next generation of our microprocessors are already post-quantum ready, which means that we are starting to ship over those microchips with post-quantum algorithms. And obviously, if we can protect those devices at a quantum level, we need to make sure that the protocols are following, making sure that the transactions are also protected at the quantum level. And this is why also we participate to those improvements proposal together with the networks. And I think the last point, which is highly relevant to us and very dear also to the Hedera DNA, is that most of the governance council of Hedera are our clients or prospects.
Yes.
We're talking about Google, Amazon, all those large manufacturers that actually not only need security, but also most of the time buy those microprocessors or those identities for their objects. It's going to be very simple answer. You control the device, the physical hardware, through your wallet. So you would receive notification on your wallet, and then you can sign things directly from your wallet for the device to actually sign a transaction on chain, so on and so forth. So it's actually seamless and much more convenient to own your own wallet and make sure that you can control your devices that way. Obviously, we have also a platform where you can revoke those certificates, control the deployment. We're talking to large corporates that are deploying fleets of devices. We're talking about 1,000 or even millions of devices to be deployed in one go. So we have also the platform to do that. But at the end of the day, you want to be able to do two things. For volume-based and low-value activities, you can automate most of the things. For any transaction below 1 cent, or whenever I can start selling the energy that I'm not consuming, I want to sell everything, whatever the price. You can automate everything. And for other sensitive transactions, that's going to be very personal. You design when you want to validate things manually through your crypto wallet. And then there's obviously a few issues when the device is stolen, when the device is malfunctioning. When the device is stolen, you actually revoke the certificate, and it falls out of the ecosystem, so you actually still control it. We obviously are, it's been 2 years that we're building this platform, which is about to go live, to be launched. We are about to TGE in 2 months. Now, mid-May, we want to make sure that obviously we have a strong launch as we bring credibility. Again, we're part of a publicly listed group on the NASDAQ, on the Swiss Stock Exchange. First three use cases that we're bringing to the network are the space communication, where we are launching those satellites and the technology is already there. It's a good relay for everything we need whenever you don't have any coverage, you or your devices. The second one is the obvious one and the very exciting one about the energy and mobility use case with smart meters, with electric vehicle, all the mobility in busy towns. And the third one, maybe it's going to be the big data oracle, making sure that you can actually access the source of truth so that you have a trusted ecosystem. You want to make sure that the device you're interacting with most of the time is going to be your laptop, your mobile, whatever device. They are actually mapped in a safe environment, and you can actually start either using those data for to get improved services from service providers, or start monetizing it.
So I know that Sealcoin was really focused on making sure that they had that utility in place and had some use cases before they actually launched their token. So he highlighted those 3 use cases that they're looking at initially. They may be adding some more. I want to get some more information. But the other thing that I was really impressed with was he kind of put a date to when they want to do their TGE, when they want to actually launch their token. And it's in May, which corresponds to HederaCon. And of course, I'm going to be down there. I don't know if Jonathan is going to be there, but of course, this use case is massive. The other thing that he mentioned there that I've said many times in the past, and Carlos, their CEO, was the one that first coined this, or the first person that I heard talk about this. Of course we want to onboard the next billion users, but they're focused on onboarding the next trillion objects. So Hedera is going to make a big impact in DePIN. The other top DePIN player we're going to talk about a little bit later on. But for now, we're going to get into another DePIN question that actually came from our community in Shark Bites. We have a few more questions here for you, Rob. We're going to start off with Kanal Ramtal, who says, great video as usual. We're so early. Question for Rob. Do you have any comment on the U.S. Department of Transportation patent? He explains that a senior U.S. Department of Transportation official was recently granted a patent for a national road pricing system built on Hedera's distributed ledger tech. The system is designed for distance-based road usage fees and real-time digital payments. Of course, our own Ryan from Genfinity, he dug up this patent. He does some great work when it comes to digging into those kind of things. But I'm not sure if you saw anything about this or if you had any thoughts.
I didn't know about it. I saw Ryan's scoop on this particular patent. There are a lot of patents out there that don't see the light of day. I actually think this is a really good one. It's published, it's real, so it kind of demonstrates, or it's a signal of trust, I guess, that in Hedera's ledger for future government applications. It's actually one that we looked at some time ago at PwC. So the concept is essentially for digital road usage, so a fee system for digital road usage. So tolls and payment of tolls based on distance, where each vehicle trip or segment is logged in real time. And Hedera's role would be to ensure that those logs are immutable, which is important when you get to disputes over who drove where. Could extend to dynamic tolling, dynamic toll pricing, which can control congestion, or even public transport. So you can do it on buses, or by stop or by distance. So all of that is possible. It's a great patent, I think. I mean, there are questions around surveillance and control and everything else, as there always is when you kind of start applying immutability to infrastructure. And one wonders whether there's sufficient problem to be solved if it's just about disputes. To apply these sorts of the effort to doing these big infrastructure, I'm talking about tens or hundreds of millions of dollars of investment. So where is the business case? Where is the problem to be solved? We can all imagine what the technology looks like, but actually, is it worth doing it? Or is it worth using taxpayers' money or shareholders' money to invest in something like this, where the opportunity cost of doing something different is always there? So, it's a great idea. We haven't seen it anywhere, and I kind of know instinctively how it would be done. So if anyone is in the Department of Transport and wants a conversation, then I'm very happy to pick up the phone and talk them through it.
Another place where the community can help out. Now, even though this might not come to fruition, as you mentioned, these patents might get filed. That doesn't mean it's actually going to happen. We do have some really impressive decentralized physical infrastructure projects out there that are actually tokenizing, that, have gone down the road of making these things actually come to market. We have CLSQ, which is going to be launching a token soon, and they already have those chips that they have in their objects for transactional Internet of Things. And then the other one is Neuron, which is going to be coming out with a token a little bit later on. But they've done a great job interacting with the aviation industry where they want to start, but also getting the sensors out there. I think they've gotten several hundred sensors out there, and even though they're going to be using it initially for aviation, that's going to that censored network is going to be used for other things as well, or can potentially be used for other things as well. Things like what we're seeing here coming out of the Department of Transportation, or, smart cities, autonomous vehicles, all that kind of fun stuff.
For sure.
DePIN is definitely one of the places that gets me excited, kind of like micropayments.
Yeah, well, and they're related, of course. Before we were talking about agentic commerce, we're talking about IoT. We're talking about the Internet of Things, the devices, the web of devices around us that we gave delegated authority and the ability for them to pay each other in micropayments to incentivize one's behavior. Now we've got this kind of agentic layer on top, so we've got the potential for a layer of intelligence that's actually making those decisions on behalf of us. It all comes together, and so the physical world connected via Internet of Things, connected devices, and now with a potential for a layer of either pseudo or real intelligence on top of it is fascinating. I mean, and Hedera at the base, the foundational layer of all of that potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so the next one comes from our old friend Orbis, who is a great community member, and she asks, how do you balance short-term tokenomics with long-term network sustainability?
Oh, well, I'm sure you've got some ideas on this. I mean, the simple answer is that, it is a balancing act, but there's no control over it, of course. So, there are levers to be pulled, and different people pull different levers. Hedera's fee model is key, I think. So the network fees, as we know, are in US dollars, denominated in US dollars, paid in HBAR. This ensures kind of stability and predictable costs over time, and it's non-speculative. So that allows us to deploy utility on the network, and utility equates to usage, which equates to revenue for the network. And so growth in utility and usage generates revenue and long-term sustainability. That should then feed back through the flywheel into the tokenomics, but the dynamics for tokenomics, the dynamics for speculation, and for the HBAR and the cryptocurrency is related but separated in terms of the influence of the respective parties. So I represent the non-crypto, non-speculative side of the equation, and my focus is on driving utility, driving growth and use of the network, as well as feeding back into things like product development and ensuring delivery success and growth in that way. Short-term tokenomics I try to avoid, but of course you've got incentives like staking rewards, and those are determined by the council. So the governing council and the Treasury Committee and the organizations and very smart people that support that committee determine how the network itself can be sustainable over time, and they pull those levers around fee structures and staking rewards and deployment of Treasury. So we live in a decentralized world, which is necessary, because otherwise we become a security, and we don't want that. And there's always a balance to be struck between these things, which is done sort of blindfolded and at arm's length from the other lever pullers, which just makes for interesting times, of course. And the consequences are often unknown, because there's all sorts of other macro events which affect all of this thing as well. The correlation to Bitcoin, the correlation to global markets, risk on, risk off, the black swan events that seem to happen quite regularly these days, and then there's the unforeseen and unpredictable that also happens, which I guess are the black swan events, but. We live in a very interesting world, and a very small part of that. So often are not masters of our own destiny.
Well, to this point, I think the HBAR that we've had there's been times when it hasn't been perfect, but we still have a fair amount of road ahead. There's been tremendous stuff built to this point. As you mentioned, it is all about revenue, and driving things like agentic commerce and the transactional Internet of Things and micropayments and all the other stuff we talk about is certainly important. I love, of course, the agentic commerce aspect. I want HBAR to be the medium of exchange and the currency for that entire ecosystem. But we'll see. That has all kinds of benefits. But the other thing is, if you can get enough big companies that are built around Hedera, even though they've gotten capitalized initially, maybe through grants to start up, that might reverse a little bit in the future, because without a Hedera, you can't have things like Saucerswap or Earthlings or all of these other teams that are building. If they can become really big companies themselves, they're going to want it to continue as well. Maybe they can become council members and give back a little bit once they become Fortune 500 companies themselves, which I'm hoping is going to happen down the line. So there's all kinds of ways we could see this become sustainable. So Rob, I know you're a little bit limited on time now, so we're going to call it, and we're going to keep the last few that we had for another week, but we appreciate you giving us some time as always. Good luck with everything you're doing on Heat, and we'll see you real soon.
Thanks, Brandon. Yeah, I'm in the US next week, so maybe we can catch up then, if not the week after.
So as Rob talked about first there, the Department of Transportation use case is certainly exciting, and it's perfect for Hedera. But just because a patent is filed doesn't mean there's going to be a product coming to market. And we already have two great teams that are absolutely bringing products to market in the form of Neuron, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and the other one that we already talked about, and that's Sealcoin. Another exciting development this week is what's going on over at RWA.xyz. So RWA.xyz is the main website that shows all of the real-world assets that are tokenized on the various platforms. Now, for a long time on RWA.xyz, we had a Hedera page, but there was nothing on it. It hadn't been populated. Well, this week we started to see it get populated. Besides USDC, Archax is one of the main contributors. I was also really impressed with what I saw from Red Swan, which is actually ahead of Archax in total assets represented on the Hedera network. They're already showing tens of millions of dollars of TVR on Hedera. Now, of course, all of those assets that come through Red Swan are real estate, and I'm going to try to get Eden Wakati, he's the CEO over there, to come on and give us some more context. Tell us about those assets, what's the plan for bringing more assets on the Hedera network, but so far they're doing a really good job. Now, clearly, this is still a work in progress. We don't have all of the assets yet listed because I haven't seen anything from our refi space yet. That's regenerative finance. We're talking about carbon credits and things like that. So until I start seeing assets on there from Dovu, we have a long way to go before we're getting anywhere close to having everything that Hedera has to offer in the RWA space. And I will say that refi is a category where Hedera has a massive edge. Wes Geisenberger has done a great job building out that ecosystem, and I think we have a lot more to come. Of course, stablecoins are an RWA, but I usually think of them as their own animal, and we did see some movement on that front this week as well. Hedera just integrated USDT Zero, an omni-chain version of Tether, bringing native cross-chain stablecoin liquidity to our network. That means capital can move across ecosystems more easily while settling directly on Hedera. No wrap tokens are required. Wyoming's Frontier stablecoin, or Front, the first state-issued stablecoin in the United States, is now fully live on Hedera. It's backed by dollars and U.S. Treasuries and is yet another HTS token that's integrated and available on Kraken, giving users direct access to this government-backed digital dollar. Now, a representative from the Frontier Stablecoin Commission is going to be at HederaCon, and I'm looking forward to having some conversations because I do think there's some other projects that I'm working on that could potentially leverage that stablecoin and leverage what the commission is doing. Now, the USDC is going to remain the premier stablecoin on Hedera, but I do think that there's a place for other players like Front as well. Now I'm going to shift gears here a little bit. We have been covering the Santiment RWA development activity since Hedera has been at the top of that list. So there's plenty of cooking going on here, but it's not just RWAs. Santiment put out their overall development stats this week, and Hedera was number 2 behind only MetaMask. RWAs, stablecoins, and payments are certainly some areas where I think Hedera has plenty of potential. It's why I'm really looking forward to that conversation that I'm going to have with Mance on payments. Now, part of that, or a lot of that conversation, I want to focus on agentic commerce. We talked about how people are starting to realize that most of the things that are going to take place on the internet, most of the transactions that are going to take place are going to eventually be focused on agentic commerce. And Brian Armstrong, the CEO, reiterated that point this week. He said very soon there's going to be more AI agents than humans making transactions. They can't open a bank account, but they can own a crypto wallet. Think about that. So we had those highlights around Sealcoin a bit earlier, and initially we focused an awful lot around their transactional Internet of Things part of it. But their token is called QAIT, QAIT, Quantum Resistance, AI, artificial intelligence, and transactional Internet of Things. So they are focused on that agentic commerce space, and they aren't any joke. They're a NASDAQ-listed company. They're respected around the world, and having a standard bearer creating a Hedera token and moving into that space like that is going to be invaluable for us. Now we're going to get into the second builder that was part of the community call. We have some great highlights around Xeni. Now we've had Xeni on a few times in the past, but just like with Sealcoin, we learned some new things about him this time. So let's check it out.
Just to give you a little bit of background on travel for the audience here. Look, the world's largest employer is travel. 330 million people basically are employed by the travel industry. It's the largest employer in the world. It's a 10% global GDP. So the problems are plenty, but the economy is kind of like the ecosystem of travel is hijacked by pretty large players who are pretty much controlling the inventory. That means aggregation of inventory and the distribution, and the payment layer is also controlled. So travel is the largest cross-border payment problem in the world in terms of security, in terms of fraud, in terms of counterparty settlements. Aggregation is also a cross-border aggregation. You have more than 2 to 3 million hotels or a vacation rental, or people are purchasing the travel in different currencies and it needs to be settled in different currencies. So, between multiple parties. So the aggregation problem, distribution problem is also huge because you're not only aggregating, you're distributing. So aggregating the hotel inventory, aggregating the flights inventory, and distributing it to large players is also a major problem. Solved by a couple of players, but in a complete isolation and in benefit to them. So there are 3 to 4 major angles in travel. Xeni has basically built the infrastructure like Jonathan explained here. He's embedding the wallet for the machine. We are embedding the wallet for every single user in the ecosystem, whether he's a P2B supplier, whether it's the user, whether it's in a major hotel owner. So we are embedding the wallet layer. And that wallet layer basically captures every single transaction happen within the ecosystem on chain and tie it to a promissory note. For example, let's say you made a booking reservation in London. Look, go on in Xeni-powered super app, let's call it Uber here, for example. You go as an Uber, you book a hotel in London. Now what happens is there are 3 counterparties. You, Uber, Xeni, and there are more, which you don't know about. The hotel itself, but there might be a supplier in between who is giving you the inventory, and it needs to settle into that currency. So if everybody has a wallet, we can create a smart contract around the transaction, and we settle these parties based on the cancellation rates. So we don't have to chase your money. If there is refundability, people get paid, and they don't have to send invoices to each other. So it's a change in water flow method from collecting the funds by one party to another. We're basically saying funds stays in a virtual escrow in a crypto wallet, and it gets settled based on the commission structure or however the business agreements in between each other, and it's all encrypted. That is the major trusted third-party layer ecosystem was provided by Xeni. To get to that, we had to, and I don't want to give a long answer, but to get to that, since the problem is so complicated, we have to rebuild the entire travel infrastructure from ground up, whether it's an aggregation, distribution, and the setup. Because there is no one piece of the puzzle you can solve. You have to bring all of them together to be able to disrupt the ecosystem. There are major reasons we use the chain. The most important for us was the cost of transaction, speed of transaction, finality of the transaction, because we have to split the payments between multiple parties. Within Xeni's ecosystem, we have access to 100 million plus users. That means we will be enabling 100 million plus wallet at some point in time. there are major players in the travel industry who are either part of our ecosystem or already experimenting with our solution. So yes, both answers are yes. Cannot disclose the name until we're fully ready to roll it out. We are planning to do something in the rewards and loyalty sector. It itself is around $140 billion US economy. In just in the US, that's the loyalty economy, and it's super siloed, and it is very much completely controlled by the brand. They devalue it. It's almost growing 13.1% per year. So it's going to get to $60 billion from $28 billion, just the software value of the loyalty programs. So we're basically removing a lot of barriers and creating a whole unique universal loyalty system, which will allow the wallet holder within our ecosystem or outside of our ecosystem to be able to tap and redeem their points across any airline or across any brand, and the value will be always protected. So making the owner of the loyalty as they control it, not the brands. So it's a pretty exciting phase for our company where we have a massive ecosystem coming to Hedera. So many of our customers, millions of our customers, are actually using it without knowing it. And they will soon realize it the moment we launch our new product. Hey, now I can own something and I can get something redeemed in exchange of this. They will realize very soon. There will be TGE on our side. That's the only thing I could say. I don't know what, when, and I cannot disclose what is it about, but you have the hint in this entire 1 hour call, so think about it. I think that's going to drive massive value to anybody who's paying attention to what we're going to do.
Now, one of the things that wasn't included there was over the past year, Xeni has settled over $15 million worth of travel on Hedera. That's done through a stable coin that they have called XBucks. It's one of the most transacted tokens on the Hedera network. But of course, we learned there about how they're planning on having a TGE. So they're going to be launching some kind of a fungible token. And it wasn't as adjacent in the actual community call as I made it there, but it seems like it's going to be around some kind of universal loyalty point. So I'm really excited around what Sachin is focused on there. He's a great community member and is really dedicated to the Hedera network because he knows it's best for his business. Now we're going to take a hard left turn. We're going to get back into our favorite game. So we're in Earthlings here again. I'm up on the platform for that elevated monorail. Oh, there's one now. I don't think you can get on them yet. They don't seem to stop. Still pretty cool, and I still love the clouds. The movement in the clouds looks fantastic. There's plenty in here to do. Gonna jump down to probably do one of these every week. They're coming out with little stuff all the time. Now, of course, this is a closed beta right now. There's not too many people who can get involved with it, but that'll change at some point. Now, I want to try to interact with these boxes. Now, that little E pops up. Hit E. Opens it up. And what did we get? We got bread added to inventory. So I think I can hit I here, and it shows up with the bread. So you can restore a small amount of your health. Now, why would you need to restore your health? Well, now we're going to go interact with an animal. In this little courtyard here, there is a boar. And eventually there's going to be sidekick animals. They're going to be a little bit bigger than this, I think. And I'm not exactly sure once they become your sidekick what they do for you. But we'll find out when the time comes. But this guy will eventually recognize that I'm here. When he does... So now he's recognized me. It's kind of like a warning. Now he's attacking me. And see, my power goes down. But you can fight back. And you can see his power's going down, his power's going down. And I won. So it's pretty cool. And you saw I ran there for a second. I have figured out how to make a run for it. WASD are how you can go forward and back. You can use the regular directional keys as well. But to run, you just press one of those keys. And then if you want to run away from the boar, you hit shift. Gives you a little more speed. The other thing that I learned is to interact with people, you just have to hit enter. And then enter again. And if you see other people, you can interact with them. What's the point in going into Telegram? And you can enter again to get out of it. But what's the point in going into Telegram when you can come to this amazing world and interact directly with people? So I'm learning enough about this every week that I think I'm going to do one of these every week for my show, because it's an absolute blast learning all the new things, figuring out how to play around with the game. And I had my daughter playing around with it, and she certainly loved everything that was going on. She's definitely going to be an Earthling. So there's the boar again. Let's see if he's going to attack me. Yep. There we go. All right. So it is kid-friendly, but this part is a little violent. I think this is actually... Oh, he got me again. Either way, had a blast with it this week. I'm going to learn more for next week and introduce you to some more stuff that's going on. Don't know when the game is actually going to come out, but it'll be fun when it does, and this way people will know a little bit more about what's going on when they finally do get a chance to play. Now, to prep for the launch of the main Earthlings game, you can go check out Kabila and Centex and check out some of their NFTs, some of their in-game assets. They have tools, they have land, they have buildings, avatars, methods of transportation like airships and all kinds of other stuff. So go check that out. But while we're talking about NFTs, I want to thank those that continue to support the channel. We had several more sales from the Bullbarian Mint that's live right now on Kabila. For those that don't know, the Bullbarian NFTs unlock my Galaxy-powered HBAR Bull World, giving access to early and exclusive content. This series has really taught me about the power of tokenizing a community and pairing it with what really is a world-class Web3 social platform in Galaxy. For those that want a rare one, the Queen is still available in the 65 NFTs that are yet to mint. And one more thing before we get into our next interview, I want to give a shout out to HBAR Clipper. He's been doing a great job highlighting different things from different videos. He's been highlighting a lot of my content. That's how my content's supposed to be used. I don't have the reach of somebody that might cover a bunch of different ecosystems. I only focus on Hedera, and to get my content out there, I need to leverage other influencers that might have a broader reach. And he's building his own brand, doing a great job. Actually, I don't know if it's a he or a she, but they're doing a great job highlighting my stuff and other stuff that's going on in the Hedera ecosystem. So I look forward to working with them here in the future. Now we're going to get the pulse of the Hedera community with our next interview. So several years ago, when Jesse and I first started with doing these interviews, the plan was to do community members. Of course, that kind of falls into builders, right? Because they have products and things they want to talk about. But I wanted to get back to our roots here a little bit and have a community member. I thought a perfect person to start off here with is somebody called Swizzle. You might know him by Swizzle on X, but man, thank you so much for hopping on.
Thank you for having me, Brendan. I appreciate it.
It is my pleasure. I love having these conversations. I have these discussions with just regular community members, non-builders, all the time, you know, behind the scenes, whether that's on X and DM or Telegram, things like that. They can be really engaging conversations. So I'm looking forward to doing it here live. So the first thing, simple question, what first got you into Hedera?
Yeah, good question. So I was dating this girl, and I got into crypto. I got into Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP were probably my first three. But I was doing some research. I was watching some YouTube videos, and I'm sitting down with, at the time, it was my girlfriend, and Hedera came up. And it was talking about all the council members. And then DLA Piper came up. She's from France. And she like stopped. She got up. She said, DLA Piper? She's like, no way. And I'm just looking. I have no clue who DLA Piper is. She said, I used to work for them. That's like the biggest international law firm ever. And I'm just like, okay, you know? So I was engaged. So afterwards, I just started doing some more research. And I started doing research on DLA Piper. I'm like, who's DLA Piper? So I found out that it's one of the biggest international law firms. Then I came across Scott Thiel. He was a huge advocate for Hedera, where I came across actually some of his interviews with, I believe his name was Jeffrey from BCW, where they used to have like the Skyrise interviews. Anyways, I started digging deeper, came across Stephen Baird and the Harvard Talk, the famous Harvard Talk video. And I was, at that point, I was just deep. I was super deep into Hedera, and I just, that's where the rabbit hole started.
Well, this is the path that a lot of people with Hedera kind of go down. The infamous or famous rabbit hole, as you say, but Hedera attracts a certain type of person, and it's the type of person that likes to do those deep dives. And Hedera has so much substance once you've kind of gotten through that first layer, whatever that might be, if that's a council or a use case or some of the capabilities of Hedera. There's just so much more under the surface once you get through the first few things that it really does get people hooked, doesn't it?
It does. It sure does.
No question about that. So the next thing I want to ask about, there's more and more things to do within the Hedera space all the time. What are you most involved with? Is it NFTs, gaming? Are you, excited about all of the enterprise stuff that's going on? Of course, DeFi is a big one as well for retail participants. What are you most into?
I'm a DeFi advocate. I'm fully involved, 100% into DeFi. I love gaming. I'm super excited about all the other things. Very excited about Earthlings. So I can't wait for that. The anticipation is real with Earthlings for sure. So super excited about DeFi. I'm involved in every DeFi protocol that there is on Hedera. Saucerswap V3, super excited about that. So I can't wait for that. I love the fact that the Bonzo Vaults launched. I'm experienced those as well. I'm excited about the SIP Sweep launch as well.
Good stuff. So, like I said, there's more and more things coming down the line all the time. Since you are really involved, I think a really good fit. I believe you're in a fairly populated area. We don't have to tell anybody where you're actually from, but it might be actually good for you to get involved with what Neuron is doing and the 4D Sky token. I know they have the sensors, all that kind of stuff. Have you been following some of the DePIN stuff that's going on in the Hedera space? We have Neuron, and the other big one is CLSQ.
I'm currently running a sensor with Neuron. I'm in the Discord as well. So yeah, I love what Neuron is doing. James has been tirelessly working for Neuron. I've seen many of his interviews, and I remember him having a conversation on how like funding is super difficult, and he's been working super hard just to even get that. And he's been involved in so many different events. So I've been following Neuron. Neuron is one of my favorite projects as well. The thing is, it's just it hasn't been like fully live. It's still in beta. They just updated their website. So, which is really cool. They just fixed, I believe, their point system. So, yeah, I'm on top of Nora.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
this is awesome, because you can attest that we didn't talk about this before. I had no clue that you were into Neuron, but again, knowing that you're so involved with it, getting one of those sensors running is, exactly what I would expect. Still surprised that you actually are running one of them.
I started running those sensors as soon as they launched. That was probably one of the first ones.
That's awesome. There's hundreds of them already out there. They're focusing right now on aviation and drones. But what I think is so cool is their next steps. They not only want to do that, they want to get their niche. They want to make sure they're established. But once they have that network out there of sensors around the world, they found the sensors that they thought were going to be most useful, but then they're going to be able to be used for everything else, smart cities and autonomous vehicles and all kinds of other stuff.
It's exciting.
It's really exciting, right? And the point system,
I really hope to see them in a few airports, in drones, and there's a lot of things that they have going on, but I'm excited, and James has a vision, and it seems like he's executing.
And it takes time, right? They've been around for 5-6 years wanting to do this. They've been tracking flight information, flight data for both drones and normal aviation on the Hedera consensus service as well. But now they're starting to lean towards how do we incentivize our sensor operators like yourself, starting off with a point system, and then eventually those points are going to be able to be exchanged for their token, right?
Correct.
All right. Very cool. So there's ups and downs, right? There's things we get excited about in this space. And then, of course, there's frustrations as well. To this point, what are some of the frustrations you've had in the Hedera space?
There's a few. I think the biggest frustration that I have is that price action that refuses to match the fundamentals.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we have enterprise pilots, carbon negative, 3-second finality, asynchronous Byzantine fault tolerance, ABFT. We have fixed fees at 0.0008 of a dollar, no MEV, no front running, and real revenue generating HTS and smart contract projects, right? Yet I think the market still treats HBAR like if it's like 2021. And it's tough seeing, I think, like all these meme coin pump while real utility gets ignored. And it tests my patience like nothing else.
I completely understand that. There is, like we were saying before, the rabbit hole takes you down and you find all of these things that you believe should give Hedera, the network, and the HBAR by extension an awful lot of value, but it doesn't necessarily reflect that in the market. But I think over time, utility is going to be king. And
I think so too. And I wanted to add there was really two biggest ones, because I think that we have like a liquidity issue. It's tough because you see so many networks with, let's say, like Aave and Curve and a lot of other DeFi protocols that I'm involved with, but they have billions and billions of dollars of TVL, and Hedera is, correct me if I'm wrong, but probably around like 60 or 70 million dollars right now. So it's tough to see all these other networks thriving while Hedera just has like a lot of slower growth, although the fundamentals, I believe, are way better.
So, I mean, that's a great point. And that's one of the things when I talk about, because you've probably seen me mention that I think that the HBAR itself should be the AI medium of exchange. But the one thing, because of all those other things that you mentioned, the really low cost, the ABFT, really high security, no MEV, there's a lot of reasons why an AI agent would choose Hedera, whether that's a stable coin or HBAR itself. The one thing that it doesn't have is that higher liquidity. One of the places where I can see that improving is now that we're starting to get these listings of our other tokens on a tier 1 exchange in the form of Kraken, we'll have those values go up, and that can flow back into HBAR and flow into all of our other tokens. And the more of that we can get listed, and more of our tokens that we can get listed on Kraken, the more that flow can increase. So that's one place, if you want to touch on that at all. Or is there any place else you see we could improve when it comes to increasing our TVL in our DeFi space?
Marketing, bringing in new users. Sure. I think that's huge. I don't know if it's because that we market as the enterprise grade blockchain or DLT. I think that is a big factor where when people see that, maybe they feel like it's not a retail platform. I'm not sure how they can fix it, but I believe that marketing is an issue.
Marketing could certainly be a problem, but you do need to have that pathway for the capital to flow in. I do think that Kraken and some of the integrations that we have there can certainly help. But we do have some of the best retail-facing applications, things that retail can get involved with. You mentioned a great one in Neuron. That's a fantastic one. But Earthlings and Saucerswap, all these things are top-tier, world-class projects. We just have to get people more interested and get that liquidity. But I think you're hitting the nail on the head. I think that is a huge place that we could see some improvements. So let's get into the positive stuff here again. What are you most excited about when it comes to Hedera for the future?
I have a few, Brandon. I don't think I have just one. There's just so many projects that I'm involved with and I've experienced. And Saucerswap V3, super excited about that. I trade. So with Saucerswap V1 and V2, I've always, done swaps. I've supplied, stake, but I've never done trades. So to have live order books for V3, it's a game changer. I'm very excited about the growth of the platform, and I really hope to see institutions on it one day. That's one. Bonzo vaults and just the growth of Bonzo. So I'm very excited about that. I'll kind of go down a list of just a few, and I know I'm probably going to miss a few projects, but I'm very excited about Dovu and what they're doing. Glad to see them being the first ones listed on Kraken, so congratulations on that. I know minting is soon with them, with their latest deal. And Dovu, I believe it's about 15% of the transactions, an average of 15% of the transactions on Hedera are Dovu transactions. I've seen them higher, I've seen them a little bit lower. If I had to take a wild guess, I would say about 15% of the transactions on Hedera on a daily are Dovu transactions. And that's even before they start minting based off their new deal. So that's really exciting. I'm super excited about that. But we talked about Neuron and how I'm currently running a sensor. I think Sealcoin, CLSQ, is extremely exciting. What they're doing, and if everything that they're doing comes to fruition, that is going to significantly impact the network. And I don't think people realize how big that's going to be.
And just a couple days ago, they had the community call, and both Sachin, another great project, that's Xeni, and we had Jonathan from CLSQ both on there. So if anybody wants more information about that, I have some interviews in the past with CLSQ, and you can also check out the community call.
Yeah, I had to look up some more information on Agentic AI just because I didn't really know too much about it. So super excited about that. I think that's going to be huge if it all works out. I mean, we already have satellites in orbit that are utilizing Hedera. So I've been following that project closely. I even bought the stock that they're affiliated with, which is WKey, and LAES, which is Seal spelt backwards. So excited to see what
I have a few shares myself.
Yeah. I'm super excited about the RWA growth on the network. It's funny because I made a post explaining why Hedera is no longer listed on RWA.xyz. I was on the website and I'm like, okay, it's no longer there. What's going on? A few hours later, I see a post that you actually posted. You said, and it was live. And I'm like, did this just go live?
Yeah, they went from just having a page to actually listing some of the RWAs that we have on Hedera, but that's only going to increase. We don't have the full complement of what's actually minted on Hedera quite yet.
You're right, because I remember having, I believe it was 17 different places where we had TVL. And I think on RWA right now, I believe there was only 5. So I don't think all of them are listed or integrated yet. I don't know what they have to do. So I think RWA is going to be a big thing. So shout out to Hashpack. I want to say a big shout out to Hashpack. They've been doing a phenomenal job. Congrats on the Kraken listing as well. And they have just an amazing team. They really listen to the community, and all their projects are based off what the community is looking for and what they want. And a lot of that team were community members from the very beginning that joined a pack. So Hashpack, I'm super excited about them. I think I've used MetaMask, I've used Trust Wallet. Hashpack is just superior, So I'm excited about the Earthlings game. They've been building for so long. I've been, waiting patiently. So I am involved in the city test. I'm also in their Discord. So I was able to roam around the city and play around with that. And I have a child, and she played it, and she's super excited about it. That the first time she played, she kept on asking to play. There's just no quest or any in-game activities to do right now. So all we're doing is just roam around the city. That's just a few projects of many more that I'm excited about, but I can probably keep on talking for another 2 hours and explaining some other projects.
Yeah, like I said, there's so many, retail-facing projects out there that people can get involved with. Swizz, is there anything else you'd like to touch on before we get out of here?
Yeah, major Hedera tokens have strong fundamentals. And if these same exact tokens were on ETH or Solana or on Base, they would probably be at hundreds of millions, if not a few $billion market cap right now. So when true liquidity injection does come in, I'm sure that many HBARbarians are going to come out millionaires, if not multimillionaires. The Hedera ecosystem is set to thrive. I think it's just important to support every project that you like, help builders all across the board.
I couldn't agree more. Swizz, I love the positivity. I love how involved you are. Thank you so much for supporting the Hedera ecosystem. Thanks for hopping on today.
Thank you for having me, Brandon. I really appreciate it.
I almost forgot. I can't believe it. The McLaren Collectables are out, the F1 Collectables that we've been talking so much about around the sponsorship, the community engagement, the fan engagement that McLaren's having using Hedera. There's been 2 of them already for their last 2 races. It's fairly easy to engage. All you have to do is connect your hash pack. There are a few extra steps than what you might expect, and then they're displayed both in your hash pack, and they also have a garage on their website. So you just have to go to their fan engagement website and you can do all those steps fairly easily. I will say that even though they are on Centex for the secondary market, they aren't actually trading. There aren't any actually listed. So they're showing that some of them are owned, but people are holding on to them. They aren't getting rid of them. So really cool to see that. Kind of crazy. Again, the main sponsor is Mastercard. There are other entities. It's strange how many Hedera-related entities are sponsors. We have Arrow Electronics, which is a Hedera council member. I think Dell is on there as well. NTT Data. That's a team that I've interviewed in the past. And then we have Mastercard. And then we have this crypto partnership program with Mastercard, and Hedera isn't involved. Something smells fishy. I think there has to be something going on there, but we'll find out more about that in the future. But without further delay, let's jump into this HBAR market. So crypto had a decent week with Bitcoin up 2.5% today and 5% on the week to 72 grand. HBAR is up, but has generally been underperforming. It's up 3% today, but only 0.5% on the week to 9.7 cents. We've been range bound between 9.2 and 10.7 cents for about a month. And if we break out of that range for the move to really be constructive, it needs to break above that always pivotal 12 cents mark. That's been important going all the way back to the beginning for the HBAR. Looking forward to next week. I'm going to do some exclusive content probably on Sunday for my Bullbarians. I'm also going to try to get Rob back on to do some shark bites, answer some of your questions and some of the questions I have that's going on as well. I have a few other interviews that I'm trying to knock out for next week, but we'll see how it all comes together. If you have any questions about all of the stuff that's going on with Saucerswap or Hedera DeFi, Monday at now 4 p.m. Eastern because of the time change. That'll switch back here in a couple weeks, but at 4 p.m. Eastern, we have the DeFi Corner live. So that's a space on X that you can jump on. And then on Thursday, I'm going to go to the Kabila Plaza space that's every Thursday. Right now, that's at noon. It'll fall back to 11 o'clock again when daylight saving or when they catch up to us as far as daylight savings here in a couple weeks. That's all we have for now. We'll see you next week.